Exercise A. Meaning from context. Page 112.
Keeping tradition alive. National Geographic explorer Kili Yuyan takes unforgettable photographs of the Inupiaq people. They are an indigenous group who live along the harsh frozen coast of northwest Alaska. This is the habitat of the bowhead whale, which thrives in the icy waters. The Inupiaq people are the descendants of whale hunters. Whale hunting continues to be a critical part of the community's livelihood and its heritage. The Inupiaq feel a profound spiritual connection with the whales. They believe that the whales agree to be hunted and give themselves as gifts. Although they now put motors on some boats and use radios, the whale hunters still experience great hardship, including weeks or even months of waiting in freezing temperatures on dangerous sea ice. After harvesting a whale, as many as 50 people undertake the nearly impossible task of lifting the 50,000-kilogram animal out of the water, which can take from 5 to 15 hours. Ultimately, the whale is cut up and shared with the entire village.
Listening. The return of American Indian lands. Exercise B. Main ideas. And Exercise C. Details. Page 114.
Okay, everyone. I think we're ready to begin. In today's lecture, we'll continue last week's subject, the lands of indigenous people. We'll focus on the indigenous people of North America, the American Indians. They arrived in North America from Asia over 15,000 years ago. Over the centuries, they spread out over the two continents of North and South America. It's a vast area of land. There were around 600 tribes thriving in North America in the year 1492. That's when the European explorer Christopher Columbus arrived in the Americas. When Columbus arrived, the indigenous groups of North America spoke roughly 500 different languages, and they each had their own customs and traditions. However, something all the tribes shared was a way of relating to the natural world. Their descendants still have that point of view, even after all the hardship they've been through. They believe in living in harmony with nature. They have a profound respect for it. In other words, they have a spiritual connection with the land. What's more, they have a spiritual connection with the animals and plants as well. In the past, they depended on nature for their livelihood. Although they hunted animals to survive, they respected and valued the lives and spirits of those animals. They only took what they needed. The land and nature were a central part of their heritage. That's why their history in the area that is now the United States is so tragic. When the Europeans first arrived, many tribes cooperated with them. However, it soon became clear that the Europeans wanted the land for themselves. Of course, the Europeans and later the United States had modern weapons and were too powerful. In the 1800s, many tribes were forced by the U.S. government to move onto American Indian reservations. These reservations were far away from their ancient lands. Today, there are over 300 American Indian reservations across the country. They cover 55 million acres of land, or roughly 2% of the total land area of the country. That's a large area when you consider that the entire U.S. National Park Service has just 84 million acres. But, unfortunately, the reservations had few large animals for regular hunting and few lakes or rivers for fishing. In general, the reservations aren't on very good land. A lot of it is quite dry, and the climate was harsh compared to where they came from. Put simply, reservations weren't easy places to live. Not only that, but many reservations are in the American West. That region has a dry climate, which is predicted to become even drier in the future. But fortunately, some tribes have left that life of hardship behind. The change began in the 1970s. That's when the U.S. government first allowed American Indians to run businesses on their reservations. Many of these businesses have begun to thrive. The profits make it possible for tribes to improve their lands and undertake some really interesting projects. Some are even using their money to buy some of their ancestors' land back. For example, the Winnebago tribe has bought land in Nebraska. The Pawnee tribe has bought some in Oklahoma. The Oneida tribe in Wisconsin has too. It's also true that some state governments are giving land back to indigenous people. California, for example, has given land back to the Klamath tribes. There are indigenous people fighting to get their land back in many places, for example, in parts of Canada, Mexico, South America, and Africa. And studies have shown that indigenous people generally take better care of the land than governments do. As some American Indians say, "The land doesn't belong to us. We belong to the land." This point of view is evident in the very interesting land improvement projects that some tribes have undertaken. For instance, in the state of New Mexico, the Pueblo Indians modified part of their reservation to look the way it did centuries ago. First, they removed all the plants that weren't indigenous. Then, they planted indigenous plants instead. It's now a perfect habitat for local animals, which are gradually coming back to the area. But the project isn't just for the benefit of the plants and animals. It's for the tribe's grandchildren and their descendants. They want to return the land to the condition it was in during the time of their ancestors. This extraordinary project is made possible by the profits of several successful businesses the Pueblo tribe runs on its reservation: a hotel, a casino, and a movie theater. These modern businesses allow the tribe to modify its land. It's happening at other American Indian reservations, too. One example is the Seminole tribe in Florida. They obtained the U.S. government's permission to run the first casino on their land in 1979. They've been very, very successful since. In fact, they own almost all the Hard Rock cafes in the world. The tribe is using some of its money to modify a small section of its tribal lands. The area is called the Big Cypress Swamp. Like the Pueblo Indians in New Mexico, the Seminole in Florida brought back indigenous species of plants and animals and got rid of those that aren't. Ultimately, like the Pueblo, they're returning the land to the way it was in their ancestors' time.
Exercise D, page 115. 1.
They believe in living in harmony with nature. They have a profound respect for it. In other words, they have a spiritual connection with the land.
2.
In other words, they have a spiritual connection with the land. What's more, they have a spiritual connection with the animals and plants as well.
3.
In general, the reservations aren't on very good land. A lot of it is quite dry, and the climate was harsh compared to where they came from. Put simply, reservations weren't easy places to live.
4.
Put simply, reservations weren't easy places to live. Not only that, but many reservations are in the American West. That region has a dry climate, which is predicted to become even drier in the future.
5.
The Pawnee tribe has bought some in Oklahoma. The Oneida tribe in Wisconsin has too. It's also true that some state governments are giving land back to indigenous people.
Exercise E. Focused listening. Page 115. 1,
The land and nature were a central part of their heritage.
2,
They cover 55 million acres of land, or roughly 2% of the total land area of the country.
3,
In general, the reservations aren't on very good land. A lot of it is quite dry.
4,
The tribe is using some of its money to modify a small section of its tribal lands.
5,
Like the Pueblo Indians in New Mexico, the Seminole in Florida brought back indigenous species of plants and animals.
Exercise B. Pronunciation. Page 118.
1. Kick.
2, Stuck.
3. Fake.
4, Row. Exercise A. Model. And Exercise B. Analyze the model. Pages 119 to 120.
Hello, everyone. I interviewed a friend of mine from Tokyo, Japan, about gross national happiness there. Won't it be interesting to find out about it? My friend's name is Haruto Tanaka. He is pursuing a degree in economics at Tokyo University, so he was in a good position to answer my questions. We began with the first pillar, good government. In answer to the first question, is the state of the transportation system satisfactory? Haruto said the transportation system was certainly satisfactory. I asked him why, and he said that the roads were good and the trains were efficient, although they were rather crowded sometimes. Most people in Tokyo are accustomed to crowded trains, though. His answer to the second question, is the public education system adequate, was yes again. He explained that Tokyo's schools are among the best in the country. So, according to Haruto, Tokyo scores well for good government. Now we move on to Pillar 2, the principle of sustainable development. When I asked Haruto, do most jobs provide enough time off? He said, not really. He said that at his company, they offer a lot of time off, but he feels he can't really take all that time off. When I asked him to explain, he said that since the other people in his office don't take much time off, it feels very uncomfortable to be the only one who does. Then I asked, do most jobs pay workers enough to live comfortably? He complained that salaries were too low, in his opinion, and that workers who earn what he does can only afford a small apartment. So, Tokyo doesn't seem to score well for sustainable development, at least for Haruto. The next two questions are about Pillar 3, environmental protection. I asked Haruto, are the levels of pollution, noise, and traffic acceptable? He said that even though Tokyo is one of the biggest cities in the world, they weren't that bad. That's surprising, isn't it? Then, in response to my question, are there parks or natural areas available to the public, he said he was proud of Tokyo's parks and how beautiful they are. They're an important part of the city's natural heritage. So, according to Haruto's responses, Tokyo seems to do well for Pillar 3, environmental protection. Next is the fourth and final pillar, cultural preservation. In answer to the first question, do people try to maintain traditions along with new practices? Haruto said, definitely yes. When I asked him to explain, he said that although residents of Tokyo are very modern in some ways, they are very traditional too. He said that he thought people there loved modern technology and new fashion trends, but at the same time, they continue to celebrate many ancient traditional festivals. Then I asked, do young people value and respect the older generations? He said there was no question for him because he felt that was part of Japanese culture. So, to summarize, according to Haruto Tanaka, Tokyo scores well for good government, not very well for sustainable development, okay for environmental protection given it's a huge city, and very well for cultural preservation. Thanks very much for listening to my presentation.